it was only in the fantasy world where Christmas existed in a more real way.
Right. Right.
Well,
And what?
but I think also Christmas is something you got to share. I mean, isn't that kind of the whole thing about Christmas?
Welcome to Holiday Film Countdown. I'm Jamie Walter, and today we are going to New York.
That's right. This film is The Family Man, our 42nd ranked holiday film. Hello, I'm Tim Walter, and today we're finding out, is your road less traveled driven in a Ferrari, or is it in a minivan?
Good one. Our first guest is Sandy Carls. Hello, Sandy. Let
Hi.
us know what you're drinking and give us a quick thought on The Family Man.
Well, tonight I'm drinking Balcones Baby Blue, which is a corn whiskey that is distilled and out of Waco, Texas. I'm having it just on ice with a little splash of O2. It's pretty delicious.
All
And
right.
The Family Man, it's kind of one of my favorites. I sort of like the fact of being able to place yourself in having a different path and seeing what could have been, and then still being able to pull back and figure out where your life stands.
Mm-hmm.
And this was a really good example of that.
Yes, I agree.
All right, and our other guest is John Carls. Hi, John. What are you drinking? And what's your initial thought on this film?
Yeah, I'm drinking a lager beer from Altstadt Brewery, which is just outside of Fredericksburg. They do classic German-style beers, and pretty much you can find something that you really like down there. As far as the movie, I really did like it. Nicolas Cage is one of my favorite actors. Followed him since for, I don't know, 30, 40 years now. The movie was refreshing in the sense that I've seen it once, but I didn't quite remember how it ended. And as Sandy mentioned, it was great to see alternate paths and what the potential could be from choosing one over another.
Great.
Well, I'm drinking my trusty ranch water here that I feel like I stick with. And my thought on the film is, according to the title of it, Family Man, you kind of know what's going to entail, but actually after watching it, I felt like it had surprises, and I was pleasantly surprised.
Great. And I'm also drinking what Sandy's drinking, the Balcones Baby Blue. Excellent. My first time. I'm going neat and loving it. I'm going to say why this film is in our countdown. I also like Nicolas Cage. It was well reviewed, and John and Sandy said they were interested in it, so I put it in here.
Yeah, I think it was a good surprise. The Family Man was written by David Diamond and David Weisman. The film was directed by Brett Ratner, and he is best known for directing the Rush Hour movies.
The Family Man was released in the year 2000, the same year as the live-action Grinch movie with Jim Carrey. So it's contemporary. This film is set in New York and also the New Jersey suburbs, specifically filmed in Teaneck, New Jersey. Nicolas Cage is the lead, as mentioned, with Taya Leone and Don Cheadle also starring in the film.
So, Sandy, what's your history with The Family Man? Have you seen it before?
I have seen it before. Actually, I've been sort of very blessed that I got on my movie journey at a young age. I used to work at a theater young. Then it switched. It was like a very well-known theater line in the Mid-South. And I worked at the theater, but I also got to work at their home office making ads for the paper and stuff for the different movies that were coming out.
Very cool.
Now, one of the big theaters that they own, that I was an assistant manager of, they ended up selling it to a company called Movie Inc. And they came in and basically they showed cult films and old movies, and it was always a double feature. So they would each, like every 2 nights, they would switch off to something else. So I got a huge education in foreign films and cult films. Plus, I had already been working for the company that basically had new run stuff. And ever since then, I've loved it. So I'm kind of a movie buff, and this one, it had a lot of good elements, along with the great actors in it. It was uplifting and sweet. So, yeah.
All right, I was glad that you had seen it before. And John, what's your history with this film?
Yeah, I had seen it before, but I would say that my memory of movies I don't retain them very well. So this was really, for me, like watching it from the first time. Tried not to do much research before we watched it. A little bit, and I thought, I need to stop because I didn't want to spoil it for myself. But the movie, again, I really like it because I already mentioned Nick Cage, and favorite movie with him, of course, is Raising Arizona. I just love almost everything he's in, and this was just another movie that I can relate to because it takes you back to some of the early Christmas style movies that you grew up watching as a kid, and so it's really good. But it has a little bit of a twist to it, and the twist made it really special.
Well, I think everybody can kind of relate because everybody in their lives at an early age has like a love or a job or a choice to make, that takes them in a different direction. And even though they might have picked the one that was right for them, to see something like this, it does make you kind of question past choices for yourself.
Right. Yeah, I agree. It wasn't exactly what I thought the movie was going to be, and I was pleasantly surprised. I haven't really even heard of this movie until we started researching it for the podcast. So I've watched it one other time just for the sake of this, but I was definitely pleasantly surprised with it.
Same here. I hadn't heard of it before. I was in We Love Video and someone mentioned it, and so I gave it a shot, and we had screened it, and it was in the running, and then it was included. Here we are. I also have a history with Nicolas Cage going back to Valley Girl, Racing with the Moon. He also had minor roles in Fast Times at Ridgemont High and The Outsiders. Who knew? And we could, and maybe will someday, do a Nicolas Cage film countdown. I could see that happening.
Yeah, that'd be good.
Yeah, he has been in a lot. Okay, with that being said, let's go ahead and check out the trailer now.
Come on, Dad, get up.
A new Christmas classic is born.
How did I get here?
This isn't my house. The Family Man is touching, soulful, and hilarious. Not only the perfect holiday movie,
You want me? That is the general idea.
but one of the best films of the year.
God, you're beautiful.
Nicolas Cage, The Family Man.
Have a great day.
Rated PG-13 at theaters Friday.
Right off the bat, I can say that I like the music in the trailer better than what I heard in the movie. The Chris Isaac was nice in the movie. It was the first kind of pop song that I thought, oh, they're going to take the fantasy life and have more modern music instead of the classical and the opera that Nick Cage was singing, at the beginning of the movie. But that's my take on the trailer,
take
that
on
the
the-
music was much better.
What about yours, Sandy?
Well, I thought it was hilarious, kind of. This was after Moonstruck, right? And there
Correct.
was a lot of opera in that one, and then he comes out in this one strong singing opera.
Was it the same song in it? I guess
I couldn't tell you that. I
Yeah.
just know that that was a huge thing in the movie before, and
Right.
I didn't know the man could sing, but he pulls it off.
Sandy was too busy with films to get into opera.
That was a good connection, though. I hadn't thought about that with the music in
Yeah.
the one before, too.
And Moonstruck.
Yeah.
That was one of my first notes.
I felt like the trailer did its job with me wanting to see more of the movie. Like, I couldn't piece it totally together. I could get the gist of what they were talking about, that there's an alternative life, or, he's going to wake up and be this family man, but I still wasn't able to fit all the pieces together. So I think it did its job of giving me a
More of a
curiosity.
teaser.
A teaser, I'm a sucker for a good love story. So I think
Well, I know John a lot of times won't watch trailers,
Yeah,
or
I'm anti-trailer.
he's
Okay.
like, oh,
Okay.
nowadays they just tell too much.
Okay.
I like that.
Spoil it for you. Yeah.
If we go to the theater, I try to just avert my eyes and think about something else, and so I don't see the trailers. And Sandy will say later, well, "What about that movie?" I was like, "I don't remember what you're talking about."
You're like, I was avoiding that. I did not.
I like
see
that
it.
strategy. All right, so here are some fun facts. The Family Man cost $60 million to make, and it grossed $75 million at the U.S. box office and another $50 million internationally. So a total of $125 million worldwide. That means almost half the ticket sales were international. So who knew that Nicolas Cage was such a big worldwide draw? And simple math, those are round numbers. I did not round them. That's 75 million U.S. box office, 50 million international, totaling 125 on a cost of 60 million. So they netted 65 million on this film. That is somewhat obscure, and that was in the year 2000, so that was pretty good money.
That is.
And The Family Man has a score of 3.3 out of 5 on Letterboxd, and it's actually climbed 1 point since we first watched it a few months ago. And we will all be giving our own reviews and our scores later on.
I think it's interesting that it's climbed in just a few months. Isn't that interesting? Like how? What would be driving that? Do you know? Do we know?
I don't know.
No.
It's not even Christmas season.
I know it's not quite yet.
Well, I wondered, I mean, has it been like released on some streaming or
Right.
something
What's driving
recently
it,
that
yeah.
has more people watching it with eyes on it?
Is it cyclic like this every year? Would be another
don't know.
question.
That would be a
It's
good
just-
question.
I mean, it's just point one. It's not like it went a full. It didn't go from
I know
3 to
but,
4,
but they
it,
don't normally do
Yeah.
anything. I mean,
I don't
that's what
know.
I'm saying.
Letterbox has a
They
lot of
just
volume.
stay.
I don't know what was
Yeah,
up with
That'd
that.
be interesting. Yeah.
Well,
But-
I think also like the fact that it did so well in the box office here and overseas, I think that along with Nicolas Cage, which we all know everybody kind of knows, it might have kind of been the story too, you know, which I kind of felt was sort of universal with paths chosen and kind of like I said earlier.
Yes, someone's finding it. The norm for holiday/Christmas films is to be poorly reviewed, hope to break even, and then about once every 3 to 5 years, one will stick and it'll climb over the years.
Right.
So some of our
They're
favorites
reckon-
were not well received when they originally came out.
Right.
So that's the normal path for a holiday film.
Yeah.
Heartfelt, but not necessarily, you know, over the top.
All right, let's get into the setting of the story. So, I mean, obviously, it takes place in New York, and New York serves as the backdrop for the high power, career driven, you know, vibrant streets and the drive of the corporate world. And it definitely gets it there with the setting of the story. And then it goes to New Jersey for the suburban life. We have both of those takes in our setting. I think it does have some of the Christmas in it. We know we mentioned that it had the eggnog.
Yeah, this is our number one eggnog movie.
Yeah, lots of references.
I mean,
there.
we had, first of all, he said he was going to pour it all over his date at the beginning. Then he goes to the convenience store.
Yeah, there were a lot of uses for it.
And then
Yes.
he buys it, meeting his angel. I guess that was an angel. We'll discuss that later.
Right.
And then his in-laws come over to the house and they ask for it. And then it gets mentioned a fourth time. So this is the eggnog winner. I don't think anyone's going to top it.
Yeah, it's definitely not going to win for the best Christmas decorations. There was some, but there wasn't a lot, and it wasn't anything special.
Right. There were lights and trees outside and things like that. So you knew exactly what season it was, but it supported the story. It wasn't a big.
Emphasis on
Exactly.
the decorations.
Exactly.
I would say neither of their real lives was Christmas very important. You know,
Right.
so
Right.
it was only in the fantasy world where Christmas existed in a more real way.
Right. Right.
Well,
and what?
but I think also Christmas is something you got to share. I mean, isn't that kind of the whole thing about Christmas is to share with loved ones and stuff? And when he was in the corporate world, it was just him. He didn't have anybody to go home to. And
Her also, I think, at the end, when you saw her real life, that was not the fantasy. You know, they were packing, so maybe we missed it, but it didn't seem like she was really heavily into the
Right.
Christmas decorations.
Well, she was a loner
Without each
apparently
other.
still because she could just pick up and move. So it didn't seem like she had a whole lot. I mean, when she's got the time to call an old buddy to say, "Hey, come pick up your box," you know, of your stuff that you left here.
for 13 years.
Yeah, you got to have not a whole lot of other stuff going on. You know, after 13 years, you're going to call about a box.
Well, her assistant said, "You got me over here on Christmas Day doing this." So that was happening on Christmas, all that
Right.
box packing.
Right.
Oh, that's right.
And for neither of them in their, professional lives was Christmas very important to them.
Right.
Right. I felt like that was aligning to his professional life when he was making, I guess it was his employees there come on Christmas Eve. They were staying after, like, it's 8:30 on Christmas Eve, and we're still at the office. And then they were doing what did they call it? The stress meeting the next morning. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Where they
I
came
do.
into
I
the
just
work.
don't
Yeah, he
recall
said
what
you
they
got to be
call
here at 2:30
Yeah.
tomorrow on
And they're
Christmas
like,
Day.
on Christmas Day.
That's
So-
a nod to Ebenezer Scrooge.
Right. And then at the end, when she's in her real life, she's doing the same thing. She has her assistant there working on Christmas Day, helping her pack and get her things in order to move.
And what do we think about the snow in this film? Quality, meaning, quantity?
I think it basically just worked as a segue to let you know that this was an important thing that was about to happen.
I really thought that the snow was just for me a segue into It's a Wonderful Life. Both times, I mean, I think there was snow that was prominent maybe 3 times in the movie, and every time I saw it, I was like, this reminds me so much of It's a Wonderful Life.
Yeah, I mean, the snow was basically when he was approached by Cash to change his fate, and then also when it was changing back,
Right.
and he was scared to go to sleep.
And at the very
And then
end.
at the end, when the two of them were talking, so you knew that was like a
outside.
moment that was going to change their lives.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, there was probably a lot more snow, and It's a Wonderful Life than what I'm remembering at the moment. But
Yeah, that was a
there,
blizzard.
I mean, you just remember, when from that movie when he was jumping into the water and the snow's coming down. It just reminded me immediately of that. And there's other references to that movie I think that we can talk about.
Oh, yeah. Well, I think at some point that movie will make our countdown. There's a chance. All right. And what about the car? So obviously the minivan played a large part and the Ferrari. And as a matter of fact, Nicolas Cage owned that Ferrari at one time. So
Really?
in real life. Yeah. Saw that in the little trivia. And also the bowling alley.
And you let Cash drive it?
I don't know if he did not own it when they were filming the movie.
Okay.
That they said that. And this is the same bowling alley that appears in The Big Lebowski, which was 1998. So,
That's incredible.
Yeah.
I would not have picked up on that.
and it is no longer open. All right. So let's move on to the characters and actors. We have Jack Campbell, played by Nicolas Cage. He's appeared in over 120 movies, including the ones I've previously mentioned. Also, one of my favorites, Raising Arizona. More recently known by maybe the younger generation for National Treasure. He won the Oscar for Best Actor in 1995's Leaving Las Vegas. And how do we feel he did in this film?
I liked it. I mean, he wasn't quite as heavy as we know him to be in a lot of his movies, but I kind of like the shock and awe that he seemed to have across the board through the different issues that he faced in this one.
He did really great in this one. And Sandy, as she said, it was a little more subtle, I think, than some of the other movies that he's done. Because, he can be outrageous with his hand gestures and just his animation. And he pulled it out once or twice in the movie, and it was like, oh, there's that guy. There he is. But for the most part, it was probably a different role than that a lot of people may know him in.
I thought he did a good job, and I think he did do that role playing with his face, like when he opens the door to the bathroom, and the baby's crying, and he's like, a baby's crying, and she's in the shower, and she just automatically, like, a married couple would do, opened up the shower, and the look on his face was like, whoa, like,
I shouldn't be checking this out.
Right, exactly. And a couple of times in some of those scenes when, of course, she thinks, you're just my husband, what's your problem? But he would give those looks, and I think he's really good with his facial features. And
Yeah, the eyebrows say a ton in this film.
Yeah.
A lot of speaking through those eyebrows. Mm-hmm. All right. And also we have his wife, Kate, played by Téa Leoni. She was in A League of Their Own. She played the first base position there. And she's mostly known for her role on the TV series Madam Secretary. So do we know her from other spots, and how do we think she did?
I think she did a great job. I think she was super cute.
She is super cute, first off. I mean, just, super cute. I don't know her from the television series. I didn't really watch that. I remember her from the League, what was it?
League of Their Own?
Yeah, League of Their Own with Madonna and some other folks too, some other comedians. I can't remember her name right now, but that I do remember her from.
no, I'm
We'll
with
check.
John. I don't really know her that well. I
I don't either.
don't really have a history with her, so.
I mean, I recognized her immediately from the
Right,
movies,
she looked
so-
familiar, but I don't really have any
Yeah, that she
history with
may
her.
be in a lot of other things that were just not coming to mind, but great actress.
How do you think she did, Jane?
No, I think she did well, and again, she is super cute. I think she did a good job of playing that role.
Yeah.
Yeah, you couldn't have cast her better, I think.
Yeah,
I mean,
agree.
just the airport scene at the beginning, she fit. The super loyal wife, happy in the suburbs, willing to go with him back to the city. Just
Well,
right on.
Yeah, I think it was kind of nice the way their personalities were the same in both worlds. you know, that she was hard driven both in her work, like if she didn't have a family, but then she was all in with that one. And he was a hard worker no matter where he was of Wall Street or what he was doing there. Plus her understanding and acceptance of, you know, like when they're sitting there for their anniversary dinner and he starts, spilling guts basically, and she doesn't look at him like he's crazy. She listens to him and kind of takes it all in. And then at the end, when he's yelling across the airport, crazy stuff, she still is accepting and kind of listens to him and takes that in. So I like the fact that their personalities and were the same throughout.
Consistent.
So that didn't change much. They were the same people, just in separate situations.
All right, we have a few other characters to discuss. Cash was, I would consider, an angel, and played by Don Cheadle. Don Cheadle's been in over 100 movies.
Not surprised.
Oceans 11, 12, and 13, plus a bunch of Iron Man and Marvel films. He was in Traffic, which I remember well. Really left an impression on me. And first of all, do we all think he was an angel in this film? Was that what you would call that role?
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah, I think so too.
And I think it also gets back to the bell ringing from It's a Wonderful Life.
Oh, for sure.
100%. It was,
Definitely.
Here we go.
I mean, it didn't summon Clarence from, that movie.
Well, it was kind of their way of messing with you a
Yeah.
little bit. It's like, this is what you're going to expect. And then when it happened, the little girl comes up on the trike. There's no delivery there.
Yeah.
So you're thinking, oh, I really thought that, but then it didn't happen.
But
so.
you knew that this is a turning point. The bell has been rung.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
And
for sure.
something's going to change now, and he knew it in the movie. When he heard it, he was gulp. This is the beginning of the end.
Right.
Yeah.
All right, and then another character was Jack's best friend, Arnie, played by Jeremy Piven, another actor in 100 movies. So we're just stacking them up here.
Yeah.
He played Ari Gold in Entourage, and his first role, I noted, was Spike in the 80s teen film Lucas. So that was one that I just remember that with Charlie Sheen. I always liked that film. And then he was also in some other old 80s films with John Cusack, One Crazy Summer and Say Anything. But then another 95 movies on top of that. I think he did a good job. What y'all think?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely like him as an actor also. I mean, I really loved Entourage, even though some people think it's, douchebaggy. But great acting in that. And his part wasn't huge in this, but the concerned neighbor, the good friend neighbor, he was perfect in that. So, I mean, it wasn't a big role, but he did it very well.
I totally bought his jersey
Yeah.
as an outsider, but he seemed to fit in the neighborhood.
Yeah, right.
And I did like the way he kind of kept him, in check when he came to him and saying, oh, she's hitting on me. He's kind of like, are you kidding me? Do you know what you have? So, I mean, he was a good friend.
Very good.
Yeah. And then listen to him when he was spouting crazy stuff too, like, oh, you'll be okay.
Any other characters strike a note with you all?
I think the daughter, I thought she did a phenomenal job, and I really liked the interaction between the daughter and Nicolas Cage.
Yeah, like when he woke her up and he knew this was the last night, and she said, is it morning yet? And he says, no, it's not. You can go back to sleep. But just she, as a very young actor, was just, I was like, wow, I don't know what else she's been in, but she seems to really have the talent.
I don't either. I know her name is Mackenzie Vega. Her character was Annie, and she looked like she could be Nicolas Cage's daughter.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, the bond was really good there. I mean, it was, and plus she was the only one on the, knew what was going on. You're not my real dad.
I
It was
know.
like, that's so amazing.
But I think that was really smart on the filmmaker's point of view, because that was the segue to getting him in and comfortable with everything that was going on around him without really fessing up to any of the adults in the room,
I totally agreed. I was like, there needs to be a tool to tie it all in.
Yeah,
and
it was
she was
that tool.
she was that.
It's a
And
great
I think
mechanism.
it's great that it was a child, because the child, before you become an adult and you have all these, I don't know, the stress and everything. When you're a kid, you still have the imagination, you're still maybe seeing angels or whatever.
Right.
So I liked that it wasn't just a best friend, or it was actually a really, really young child.
Right.
Yeah.
She was insightful and she was busy watching, whereas everybody else was just had to be doing kind
Correct.
of. And
She was able to see through it and past into the future and say, "I know this is not my dad."
As
It
long
helped
as
him.
she wasn't gonna, as long as he wasn't gonna kidnap her and her brother.
Yeah.
Isn't that what she said? You're not gonna kidnap us.
Yeah.
He's like, no. She's like, okay.
I'm good now.
I know.
well, even when she pinched his nose, they did a really good job.
Yeah.
Really good.
Yeah.
That was so
so
cute.
sweet. Yeah.
All right. Well, that will get us into the scenes. Any funniest scenes? What do you think?
One thing I liked, and I mean, it was funny. It was the staircase on there, and well, she was eating the chocolate cake, and they're running amok and stuff, right? But as I was watching that, I was thinking, okay, they didn't really ever have a wedding. They never shared wedding cake. They never smushed it in each other's faces. And that's all I could think about that scene on the staircase. I was like, this is their wedding when they shoved cake in each other's
anniversary.
faces.
Oh,
And
very
that's what hit me there.
Yeah, it was going really well until he didn't know what to say.
Yeah, right. I mean,
That-
then it fell apart.
Got a little awkward.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like when his bowling ball comes to him and it says Jack the Hammer Campbell.
Yeah.
And he can barely keep it out of the gutter.
Well, and then he was so excited. He was like, yes, because he just hit a few pens.
Right. He knocked anything down.
Right, because the one prior to it was a gutter ball. And then he turns around all excited, and his teammates are just sitting there with, the long faces like, what the heck is going on? And he's like, what? I hit some pens down.
Needed a spare dude.
That was funny.
Well, and obviously it was bad because even then when he ran into the neighbor who hit on him, she's like, "You got the flu?"
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
So it
you
was
sick?
like
He has a reputation at the bowling
everybody
alley.
knew that he was not doing well that night.
The hammer was the hammer.
True. All right, what about sad or sappy?
Or relatable. Anything? How about the baby pee?
Well, yeah, of course, we've all seen
Oh my
that.
God,
and
we have 3
experienced that.
boys. Of course,
yeah.
that was hilarious. Because the minute you took that off, woo, Free Willy, and
Yeah.
it's like, put it back down before it catches you in the face.
That
It's
was
very-
not CGI.
There was a scene, and I don't remember who said it. Maybe it was the older gentleman at the place where he worked, but talking about tax returns and girlfriends, and you keep tax returns for 3 years and you throw them out. And I was just kind of like, oh man, this is so brutal. It was.
Well, it was just so shallow and empty. And
Yeah.
you felt sorry for him because really,
But they did a really good job of demonstrating the vacuous life he was living
Right.
with that crew around him and all their
Yes.
priorities and
Yeah.
all the way up and down. The
Yeah.
one guy who was the family guy kind of was the butt of the jokes in the office.
Right. Right.
Exactly.
But I will say, I do think they didn't really paint it as. I mean, it was vacuous, yes, but they didn't paint it as totally horrible. Like, he wasn't evil. He was single-minded, and he was making his people come into work on Christmas because there was a deal.
Right.
But it didn't really sell either side as being horrible. They were just different,
Yeah, they weren't malicious and hostile
Right.
and what they could be. It was just that was their chosen lifestyle, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah, like they just expected it. It wasn't.
They knew what they signed up
Yeah,
for in a
exactly.
mergers and acquisitions Wall Street firm, and that's what they were doing.
Yeah, I mean, he seemed happy in kind of both lives, but one's hitting on a lady in your building and flirting there, and the other one is having a meaningful daughter, family, the whole thing. So, yeah, it was pretty different. But I'm sure he could have been completely happy, like she said towards the end. He said at the end, we could go on and we'd be fine, but we're so much better together,
Right.
which said it all.
Right. Because they definitely could be fine. And they were.
Exactly.
Until, I guess, you don't know what you don't know, right?
Right, exactly.
I mean, basically.
To me, the sappiest scene was when Annie, the little girl, says to him, "I knew you would come back," when she recognized him as the real dad, not
Right,
some
playing with her.
imposter.
Playing out in the snow. Yeah.
Oh,
that
yeah,
was,
in the yard.
I mean, this
Yeah.
wasn't a total tearjerker, but if anyone was going to cry, it was going to be that, right, John?
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Or the hair,
Do you have a
rubbing the
tissue?
hair on the youngest while he was sleeping. When the night he was saying goodbye to the kids, kind of because he knew he'd seen the angel. He knew it was coming to an end.
Right.
Right. That's when that U2 song would have been perfect.
Yeah, we'll talk about the soundtrack in just a minute. We're almost there. Does anyone have a best line or quotable line?
I liked it when she said, I believe it was Kate that said, the plan does not make us great. Or wait, hold on, let me rephrase that. It was Kate that said, the plan is not what makes us great. We are what makes us great. Remember that part?
Yeah.
At the
And
very beginning?
yeah, I think it was
Yeah,
at the
before
beginning.
he got on the plane.
Right.
Yeah, and then that's when she first said, I choose us.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
And then she repeats, I choose us, when she offers to move back to the city.
Yes.
And then at the end, Jack says it to Kate, I choose us. When he talks her out of getting on the plane to Paris,
Right.
that's what he said. So that was definitely the
And
through
she
line.
did seem to like hone in on that. Like she almost remembered that was, you know, a
It
stick
resonated
between-
with her.
Exactly.
Yeah, that is the continuity. Now that you bring it up.
The moral of the story, I think, or the character arc. I mean, obviously, there's a lot of that going on with him changing into the family man and getting his priorities straight, I guess. You can't take those things with you, right? But it's important are the relationships and the people in your life. And I think that's pretty much the moral of the story.
Yeah, I agree. As Sandy said earlier, it's like a sliding doors moment where you could have gone this way or a fork in the road. And what would have happened if you'd gone the other way?
Right.
In this case, he got to see.
Right.
Yeah, you got to see both. And of course, he chooses the right one, right?
We think so, right?
Oh, yeah, I
Well,
think so.
I even go back to like Don Cheadle when like Cash, and I understand like what made him pick him. Like, because he steps up to kind of intervene and save people, like to prove he's a good guy. And even though that's what he did, business. I can business my way out of this guy with a gun in his hand. And then Cheadle turns on him and kind of says, "Oh, you asked for this. You're not missing anything." So it's because of that good deed. Is that why he chose him? Because even later on, when the girl is in he comes back to kind of say, "Oh, your time's up," and the girl is buying something in front of him, and Cash seems to kind of be watching her, and he makes some kind of comment about her leaving before he starts addressing him. Like, you wonder if he has chosen another person to intervene in some sort of way. I don't know.
Well, the reason why he was doing that, because, I mean, you noticed that, right, he gave back too much cash.
She gave $1.
Right.
It was a
And-
good deed.
Yeah, it was $1, right?
$1.
And then he gave her back
Change for a 10.
for a 10.
Yeah.
And he was waiting for her. And she kind of looked at it and her eyes kind of got big and he's like, "What? Is everything okay?" And he was waiting for her to say, "Well, you gave me back too much change. That this is not what I," but she didn't, right?
Right.
She went out. And so I think maybe it's people who, well, I don't know her background story, but again, with Jack, it's like, again, he wasn't a bad guy. He was very driven in his business and doing it, but yet, he could tweak a few things in your life, right? Like we all need something. You think that you got this all figured out? Well, you're wrong, right?
Right.
We need a higher being to
If you're a
intervene.
good guy, I'm going to give you a chance to,
broaden,
expand your
expand.
life.
Good word. Yes, true.
All right, we have any hot takes here?
When I first watched, and it was the opening stuff, and you knew that he had moved on and not gone back, right, for Kate, I thought, he has no remorse. I mean, she's called him, and he's just like, yeah, it's just somebody that, But I mean, it seemed to be like this huge deal, and I thought, man, Jack, you're kind of a scum because you're not looking back at all. You have zero remorse. But in the end, so I'm wrong about this hot take, but this was sort of my hot take. And in the end, I was like, no, he's flipped it because he's now experienced that life, and he's flipped it, and it changed him completely, this fantasy life, and she was kind of the same. She got past it and, didn't seem to really want a relationship. She was a single, successful, established, business person.
Yeah, I agree with you. Since he hadn't gotten married, you would think that he would have been more on, oh, Kate,
Yeah.
not, oh, Kate.
That's the one that
her.
I let go.
Right.
Yeah, I thought there would have been a little more spark there.
Yeah, it was just.
But I guess it had to set up the whole progression.
It did, yeah, and I was a little jumpy, I guess, but that was my original. I was like, wow, he doesn't care at all.
Yeah, I mean, somebody that you were kind of thought about being married to, the fact that she's calling out of the blue.
And I'm
he
coming
comes-
back. I'm coming back.
Yeah,
I'm just
he-
going over there for a little bit. And I'm coming back.
There were promises made,
Right.
and then he acts like, no.
And if you notice, the box of stuff he got was pretty meaningless stuff. So it wasn't like it was valuables. It was more of a contact, not a, you need to have your stuff.
Right.
Right.
It wasn't some pricey stuff she had to return.
Exactly.
The picture was the most valuable thing in there. The photo booth pictures like that.
You have any hot takes?
So mine is when he goes back and tries to get his job, or actually does, not necessarily his position, but he goes back to the company in New York and he gets a job and he brings her to the apartment, and very, very nice apartment that they're going to live on the company for a while, and we can move to the city, and we can put the kids in the best private schools, and I mean the place was gorgeous. And she's like, what? And she's so disappointed. I'm like, in my head, I'm like, no, go for it. Like, what? You can have it all. You can,
This is going to be a better life for all of us. We've put Annie and Josh into private schools.
Annie goes to a great school, Jack.
I'm talking about the best schools in the country here, Kate.
Jack, what could you possibly be thinking about? What about my job?
Well, this is New York City. It's like the needy people capital of the world. Your Jersey clients aren't a tenth as pathetic as the ones you could find here.
I can't even believe you're talking about moving back into the city, Jack. I thought the reason that we left was because we didn't want to raise the kids here.
No.
It's like, how many people move into a house in Jersey and then decide, oh no, I want to be here the rest of my whole life.
and one house.
And my grandkids come here
house.
too.
I know. Like really, what woman does that? I'm just joking.
Especially if that New York apartment's available.
Exactly.
know,
I
it
mean,
was
I get the Jersey
gorgeous. It
was
was
a
like the
decent life.
penthouse.
No, the Jersey life was decent.
It
And
was,
it was a
for
nice
sure.
suburb.
For sure.
And it was a cool house. But it's not that place.
Absolutely, but this is like an
You can
upgrade.
always move back.
Like this was like a huge upgrade in life, And so in my head, I guess it's a hot
Try
take.
it for
Is
a
like
year.
I know you could always go back for sure. You can buy any 4-bedroom house in Jersey, But this was a real different lifestyle, and he's like, we can get whatever we want. We'll make it easier. Life will be easier, And she's like all disappointed. I mean,
Yeah.
just disappointed in him. Like, what? You want to uproot us from our house, and take the kids out of the school they love? And I
Yeah,
just
their
thought,
daughter
just
was
try it.
6, 5, maybe.
I mean, maybe
had she
at the
even really
most,
started
come
school
on,
yet?
I know.
Yeah, she wasn't in high school.
Exactly.
Or even middle school.
Or even middle school. She's not attached. Just bring her, in my head. I'm like, just do it.
Buy her a pony.
I think it goes back to what
Ferrari.
I know.
I think it goes back to what the neighbor Arnie said, which is, everybody wants what you have.
Yeah.
And I don't just mean the wife. I just meant everything.
Right.
The family, the kids, the
Happy life. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess the in-laws probably were in Jersey, so they'd have to make that work too. And it seemed like they were tight with them.
Yeah.
And the in-laws were good, seemed like good people. So my hot take is that the sequel to this film would be The Family Woman, and it would be about 15 years, maybe 20 years later, when that girl at the register who took the extra change and walked with it, when she comes back later and redeems herself, and she's the next subject recipient of Cash's moves. That's my hot take.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
I'd watch that.
Well, the parent guide for the film is PG-13, and I feel like that's pretty appropriate. There was no nudity, right? No,
Well,
there
in
was-
the shower scene, I mean.
Oh, the
it was-
shower, but it was behind the
Shadowy.
glass, so
Very
yeah,
shadowy.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
didn't get it, but so PG-13, I feel, is very appropriate.
Yeah.
Everyone agree?
Yes.
Sure.
Totally.
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, I was just saying, even that scene, she just came across as fun,
Yeah.
It wasn't sexual, it was just fun.
Yeah, singing and dancing
Yeah.
in the shower.
Right.
I don't know. There's some towel work.
I know. I didn't notice that. I thought that was a little odd, but
I was
whatever.
like, y'all are going to start right off with that?
You're like, I haven't even had my whole drink yet.
All right, let's move on to the soundtrack. The opera music is Rigoletto by Giuseppe Verdi. I didn't know that offhand, but he brings up different portions of it as he's moving around his apartment and living the high life. And then some traditional Christmas music in there was Let It Snow by Lena Horne. And then, as we mentioned earlier, we heard Chris Isaak, Wicked Game. In the trailer, we heard One by U2, which did not appear in the film. Same for Once in a Lifetime by the Talking Heads, also in the trailer, but not in the film. We've seen that before in this
Which
countdown.
was very disappointing to John.
Yeah, we should emphasize that more.
And then the orchestral music in the background was by Danny Elfman. We'll actually be talking about Danny Elfman in an upcoming episode. He was in the new wave band Oingo Boingo and later moved into producing soundtracks with Tim Burton. And then many, many other films like 30, 40, or 50.
He's had
some
a
high
big
number.
career.
Yeah, we just got through watching Beetlejuice, and Danny Elfman is like, there he is again.
He keeps coming back. He does his thing.
Keeps going. All right. Well, with that being said, what do you think you would rate this film? Like 1 to 5, 5 being the best. Tell us why, Sandy.
And the letterboxd number is 3.3. So that's what the public has said.
Well, I kind of think it's a sleeper, sort of, but I really liked it. I mean, and I know it sounds silly, but I've seen it on TV before, and clicking through, if I came to it, I would stop on it, you know? So I'm giving it a solid 4 or better, you know?
Okay. And you, John, what's your score and what are your thoughts?
Yeah, she stole my score. Anyways, I want to give it a 4 because I really thought it was solid. It was very, very relatable, and I might have mentioned earlier in the podcast that, you know, I related it to a lot of Christmas and holiday films, just little bits here and there that just, you know, kind of took me back, and I was like, this is a feel-good movie, and you weren't really sure how it was going to end up, and, you know, it's still a little ambiguous at the end, but you feel good about the way it's going, and I recommend it.
So you gave it a little bump on the nostalgic nods to the past.
So I'll go
and,
4.1.
I mean, that's what these type films are about. So when they can score points based upon those types of items, go with it.
Yeah, I'll also say that I might not have picked up on it if we hadn't done this together. And now that I have, I'm like, no, that was a good movie. And, you know, if anyone asks, I'll say, yeah, you should watch that. That was a good classic Nicolas Cage holiday movie.
I think, I don't know why, but I'm like reluctant to give it a 4, but I want to give it a 4, but I don't want to go 3.5 because I feel like that's too low. But then it's really silly to go 3.8, so I'm just going to go with the 4 because I'm a sucker for a good love story, for one thing. It had a lot of the same things that a Hallmark film would have, where he's got to go back and fight for the family or the girl. In this case, it was a family at the end, and that's pretty typical of a typical love story of the Hallmark type. I thought it kept my attention. It was a little different than I originally thought it was going to be, but in some parts I did feel it was dragging just a tad, just a little bit long, but for the most part. So I think I'm going to go with the 4.
All right. I like the Hallmark nod. I see that because look at the timeline. This was a 2000 film. The Hallmark movies really fired up around 2005 to 2010. And although in those it's typically the woman who is a career woman and goes back to the small town and has to decide whether or not to go back and so forth.
Right.
But
that high school flame.
I see I see
That
the
chocolatier,
I see the parallel.
that cookie maker.
Exactly.
And that being said, I'm gonna stay in the 3s. I just know the other films around us here and in the neighborhood of this one in the countdown. I'm gonna go with the 3.7. It's better than I remembered it when we looked at it the first time. So it's bumped in the real world and in my world.
There you go.
I kind of like the fact that, like, if you go to It's a Wonderful Life, which is one of my favorites, you come to this, and even though he's had the change and he knows his 2 lives, whatever, the possibilities, at the end, it doesn't take you back to one or the other. It leaves you on possibilities, you know, of them both sitting there talking together and the snow in the background, which was kind of the film's, oh, something special's going on.
Yeah. They'll be together. We just don't know how.
Exactly. They're going to make this work. The possibilities are endless.
Sandy, who would you even recommend this film to someone? And if so, who? And then would you watch it again?
Oh, I'd definitely watch it again. And
Okay.
I would talk it up for sure.
Yeah.
I have sisters that would be all over this.
Okay.
You know? Yeah.
There you go.
It rubs a little bit like a girl
Yeah.
flick, a little bit.
Yeah,
So,
I
I
agree.
wouldn't talk it up to my boys, but I would probably
Right.
talk it up to their girlfriends, and they would watch with. So,
Exactly.
And how about you, John? Would you recommend it, and to whom and why?
Yeah, I would, and I have to agree that it's a lot of guys. It would not appeal to them just because it is a love story, and guys are intimidated by that.
but there's Ferraris.
But there is a Ferrari, and then there's a minivan that barely started. So
Would you watch it again?
Yeah, I mean, I resisted watching it before we got together.
Okay.
I kind of wanted to because I, thought I'd be more prepared to talk about it, but that's not necessarily the case. So I would watch it again, and especially around Christmas time because it's just something you could put on and while you're cooking or whatever it is, and just watch it. I don't have to pay attention as much, but it would be a great background movie while we're doing stuff around the holidays.
Yeah, and I agree with Sandy. Like, I wouldn't necessarily recommend it to, I don't know, young adult guys or even, I guess, even older. I don't think, but they would watch it probably with their girlfriend. So I would recommend it to people, but it's probably more of a chick flick. It's more, like I said, like the Hallmark movie. I would watch it again, too. It's definitely around Christmas time when they're rolling those films, 24-hour Christmas.
Oh, yeah.
I
It's
would
a nice
probably
change.
stop and watch it, again. So I think I would.
Yeah, I would definitely recommend it to the right people. Anyone who's a big Nicolas Cage fan,
Yeah.
they would get into it.
Yeah.
Now, if they are a really big Nicolas Cage fan, they've already seen it. But those types, and obviously folks who love romance movies, it's a drom-com, I guess,
Yeah. I mean, but
I would say.
Yeah.
And
Easy
I
to
would-
watch.
Yeah.
yeah, it was a 2-hour film, and there were like maybe 2 spots where it played slow, but not a lot. I didn't remember it being that long, and it didn't feel that long, so that was good.
Drinks help.
Always.
Oh, yeah.
Tony's Blue.
Well, Sandy, what is your favorite holiday film?
I'm a big fan of It's a Wonderful Life. It's pretty long, but that's kind of my favorite.
It's a classic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I kind of like the possibilities there, or the fact that I thoroughly believe everybody bounces off everybody else's life and has an effect on them. And the fact that they kind of put that into a movie, I think was kind of spectacular, sort of. And because I kind of believe that is the way the world is. You're built, and your personalities are who you run into, how things that happen to you build who you are. So to have somebody like George Bailey, who had so much effect on so many people, and then for that all to be taken away, and such a huge impact from a guy who thinks he's worthless, nothing, I just love that.
Yeah.
All right. So we got the redemption story there.
Yeah.
How about you, John? What's your favorite holiday film?
I don't disagree with anything Sandy said. I'm maybe not as nostalgic, but I cannot watch it off without watching it from the beginning. If it comes on the TV, I'm going to start it from the beginning. I'm going to start it on a channel that has no commercials, and I've probably seen it 50 times at this point. I never, ever get tired of it. There's just a few movies in life where it's like so easy to laugh, and people are like, oh, it's dumb. It's like, no, it's just brilliant. It's just so easy to laugh at, and it's a great story. So, I mean, I probably have a lot of favorite movies, but that one is fairly contemporary and easy for me to watch, very easy.
All
That's
right.
funny you called it a redemption story. Even as a little kid, like The Grinch was like
Yeah.
my all-out favorite. I mean, they would give me Grinch stuff because I knew it by heart, like watching it, as a little kid.
Yeah, remember we used to have the tapes of all the Christmas movies because we couldn't see them on demand, and so we would record, and we had a Christmas tape or 2 or 3, and we just put them in during Christmas.
Yeah,
Just
one of the first
keep 'em
Christmases
going.
that we were married, I was working in a hospital. I was low man on the pole. So we didn't get to go home. So it was just the two of us. So we spent time, VCR in every Christmas special that came on the TV.
Pee-wee's Christmas special.
Yeah, we had 90 minutes or longer, couple of tapes actually.
Yeah.
All the cartoons, anything that came up Christmas, we had it.
On the VHS.
Yeah.
I
You
noticed
remember that well.
they had a VHS in the movie when he was putting the old movies on of a past birthday for
Right.
Kate. He got it out and he slid it into the
Yeah.
like heaven. You don't see those that often
Yeah.
anymore.
Yeah, that dated the movie right there.
Yeah, for sure.
That and the phones always do that.
Oh yeah.
The mobile phones always take these films.
Right.
Right. Is there anything that you would like to promote, Sandy?
Austin Film Festival. It's a writers' festival, which is always great. If you get your tickets early, it's really not that unreasonable. And it's a whole week of watching upcoming movies or movies that you might never get to see again because they're kind of selling it. But the fact that it's a writers' festival, and most of the time the script writer or writers are there, so you get to ask them questions after and stuff. It's really kind of fascinating.
And that's every October, right?
Yes, every October.
Austin Film Fest. All right, and John, is there anything you want to promote?
Yeah, I'd like to give a shout out to a place where one of my sons works, Move Sports Ninja Academy, and they train kids and adults for athletic, very very upper body athletic for competitions and
Ninja
just
Warriors.
Yeah, I mean, but confidence. It just teaches kids confidence, and it's just I've been over there to watch the coaching and watch the kids, and it's spectacular, and it's really a great place to.
What's the name of it again?
Move Sports
Move Sports.
Ninja Academy. It's in Pflugerville.
And what's the youngest they can start?
I don't know for sure, but I don't think anything younger than 6 is probably happening there.
So probably
It's young.
first grade, elementary school and up.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Good. All right. Well, thank you for joining us for this discussion of our 41st ranked film, The Family Man. Please like, follow, and comment.
Yes, please share and spread the word about Holiday Film Countdown.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you, Sandy and John, for joining us.
This was really great.
Yeah,
Thanks.
thank
you
you.
both.
And thanks to all of our listeners. Next week, we're moving on to our 40th ranked holiday film, which will take us to the North Pole.
Uh-oh.
See you there.
Chili.